Well, how are you enjoying it? By the way, congratulations to Antonio, both Bens, Dean with the two N's, Joel, Kayla, Kimberly, both Lisas, Mary, Sharon, Sue, Toma, hope I pronounced that right, and Valerie, 100% completion. Good for all of you. For those of you whose names I didn't call, don't worry about it. You get to work on it on the weekend. Again, we've designed it to be at your pace, at your convenience. Let's go to the poll questions. What is the most typical use of proceed? How about proceeds?
Yes.
SBA loans closed by your institution. Oh, and Mr. Sexton, I got you out of the habit of saying bank all the time.
Yes, you did. You absolutely did. I was just curious if there was a common theme in use of proceeds on SBA loans at our participants.
Interesting. I zero in inventory. That's interesting. But
Well,
again, most common. That makes sense. Put that back up, Joseph.
the thing that excites me, Bob, is the working capital percentage.
Right.
It's working capital. I was a small business owner for 9 years and was director of a small business development center for 9 years. And have been involved in small business lending all my life. One of the things that I like to encourage banks is make sure your small business borrowers have an appropriate level of working capital.
As we discussed in other training, you are mandated when you sign, if you sign that 1920, you are mandated to vouch that there's sufficient working capital in that business for 12 months. That is an affirmative statement that you have to personally vouch for.
Exactly.
Number two, does your institution normally set the interest rate on your SBA loans at the maximum? Why are you asking this, Lance?
Well, Bob, I've been working on educating the bankers in my institution that the rate doesn't have to be Wall Street Journal Prime plus 2 3/4 as an example of larger SBA loans. You can have a high quality borrower. You can do a Wall Street Journal Prime float if you want to with an SBA loan. Now, if you're selling them on the secondary market, it certainly is advantageous to be at that maximum allowable rate. But I did a loan the other day for a A+ borrower and did a Wall Street Journal Prime plus 1/4. So I was just curious. Some banks, the rate is the max rate, but SBA can be used to help all types of borrowers, and sometimes the rate doesn't necessarily need to be the full maximum rate.
And we have competitive pressures. Other SBA lenders may have.
Absolutely.
Do you have a credit memo at your institution specifically for SBA loans that addresses various SBA eligibility requirements?
Well, and I asked this question, Bob, in working on the origination and closing of SBA loans. I'm going through the process of tweaking our credit memo and making sure that the right eligibility information is in there to address SBA's requirements.
And for those of you who've answered no, that's okay.
Yeah.
But maybe something you want to address.
Well, when you look at the development of credit memos in the SOP 5010-5H, it talks about the things that you should include. As an example, if you're doing any refinancing, your credit memo needs to address how that refinancing is eligible in the SBA loan program.
Absolutely. And the last poll question is typical size.
And I don't know that there is a typical size, but some banks get in a groove of only doing loans above a certain number. And certainly we have taken advantage of those loans under $150,000, Bob, that do not have a guarantee fee right now.
Absolutely. Good.
Isn't that interesting, Bob? Nobody really, well, it's not that they don't pursue it, but typical size is much larger than 100.
Yeah. As an aside, I'm a fan of riches and niches and become specialist. And I think that lenders who focus on those smaller loans, what would you rather have? One $5 million loan from a risk assessment, one $5 million loan or $150,000 loans?
Yeah.
Very good. This is how to ask questions. We have some questions. You can bring it up here, but let's go to the email questions. Lance, take this away. Or sorry, we know we have a delay.
We received an email question talking about the size standards on SBA loans, and I just wanted to clarify. One participant was asking, there was a comment in the webinar where I talked about size standard can be determined by number of employees, average annual sales, and net worth. It is true, regular size standards determined based on average annual revenues and number of employees, but if you don't qualify under the regular standards, you can go to the alternative standards. The alternative standards are based on net worth and net income of not only the borrower but all affiliates, and the average net worth of the borrower and affiliates can be up to $15 million. And I did share an example in the webinar, Bob, where I was talking about a loan that I was working on that did not qualify under regular size standards, but because that business and all affiliates had an average net worth of $3 million or less, they were able to qualify. But as the email astutely points out, not only does $3 million or less qualify, but if the net worth of the borrower and all affiliates is on average less than $15 million, they qualify under alternative size standards.
Very good. I wanted to bring up, this was a news article that hit on Wednesday. I will be covering it, but I'm giving you a sneak preview of Fraud Friday. I'll probably cover this next week. And what this is about, Lance, is a couple were found guilty, they pled guilty. They pleaded guilty. I still don't know the difference between pleaded and pled. To one count of making false statements to the SBA. What was the false statement? The false statement is in that last paragraph. They claimed they were purchasing equipment, but really the loan funds were used to pay off equipment loans and to make payments on construction loans held by Johnson's various businesses and for their personal use. Lance, the loan closer didn't do their job in this case, did they?
That's true, Bob. My expectation is the bank did not get paid on the guarantee on this, or at least was repaired significantly, because when you identify, even in an express loan, Bob, you identify the use of proceeds when you put it in the E-Tran or SBA 1 at some point in the future, and then you develop your own authorization. And toward the bottom of that simple authorization, it requires you to detail what the use of proceeds are. And as a closer, you've got to make sure if you've got $50,000 worth of equipment identified as the use of proceeds, you're going to ask your borrower to bring in invoices for that equipment before you release the money. And typically in our bank, to even put another level of security there, we'll issue the checks when we disperse to the companies that provide the equipment.
Yeah, and once those loans go for personal use, by definition, it's an eligible loan, which means there's no guarantee, no value.
Well, and the challenge on this one too, Bob, if it was an early default loan, use of proceeds is one of those, and we'll talk about that later in the course. Use of proceeds is one of those critical areas that SBA reviews, and if the authorization states that the use of proceeds is a certain list and then you disperse it a different way, they presume that that's part of the reason the default occurred.
So the takeaway on this article is the loan amount is small, but that doesn't mean that your due diligence is waived. You must be a prudent lender, and you must understand the transaction, even if it's a $53,000 loan.
My expectation on this one, Bob, is it defaulted. They presented for guaranteed purchase. SBA repaired for the full amount of the equipment identified to be acquired in the authorization. And then when they looked at how the loan was dispersed and used, that's when they went after the guarantor.
And when a borrower commits fraud, it's making the false statement.
Absolutely.
That's where they go for that low-hanging fruit. And when you're a POP lender, when you're a nationally certified bank, if they make a false statement for you, that's a crime. It's a crime.
Absolutely.
All right. We don't want you. We want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel confident. We don't want you to be up at night worrying about this.
But again, Bob, this particular case brings out a very critical closer point. Use of proceeds and disbursements need to match. If there are any changes, those need to be approved by the SBA. So it's a critical area, and it's important on every SBA loan, Bob. But if you have an early default, if you don't have a match between use of proceeds and disbursements, it could be the reason the SBA guarantee got denied.
And you are the gatekeeper. If you think there's an issue, you hold up the stop sign and say, hold on, I don't feel comfortable. This is what I'm picking up. And you're the one who makes it right. And in that situation, there are specific ramifications that happen to people who don't have high character. Give us a recap of week one. What was the takeaway, Lance?
Well, we were just looking at what a prudent lender is, looking at SBA eligibility, looking at writing credit memos on loans of under 350 or over 350, and then looking at SBA loan structure and purpose. One thing I wanted to point out, Bob, and a couple of people have emailed me, one of the attachments or reading material items says something about environmental on it, and when you click on it, it's a sheet that talks about SBA loan and structure. It's the correct reading material item. For some reason, it's just mislabeled. It should be labeled loan structure and purpose.
I will blame my staff. I'll let Joseph and Mike go find out who's responsible for that heinous error.
You probably don't have to blame. It could have been me.
Week two, by the way, our commitment to you is that we will upload those videos by Tuesday, but we always try to get them out earlier. Spoiler alert, we're going to try to get them out this evening so you have them for the weekend. So hopefully my staff will make sure that happens. But tell us about what week two. Give us the overview.
Week two, we're going to talk about the SBA loan authorization. And the SBA loan authorization, I've frequently called it the Bible of the SBA loan. But it is the most important document in an SBA loan file. It tells you how to structure the loan. It tells you how to disperse the loan. It explains what you as a loan closer need to do to properly close your SBA loan. So very important week in this training class. We're going to talk about use of proceeds, what an SBA loan can be used for, how to document use of proceeds, what to do if you do have a change to the SBA loan authorization. And I think a mistake a lot of lenders make is, they have a change, they go ahead and close the loan, and this closer group, like you said, Bob, you guys are the gatekeepers. And if there's something that's not appropriate according to the authorization, you need to make sure and get that approved. So we talk about what to do if there is something that needs to be changed in the loan authorization, and then some continued discussion about the credit memo and how the credit memo and the loan authorization need to match up.
Three things have to match, don't they?
I'm sorry, Bob. Credit memo.
Three things have to match. The credit memo, the authorization, and the work product. Those three match. If those three match, you're golden. If they don't match, and there's ways to fix it. We understand, Lance will go through it, that there are changes, things happen. The equipment was a classic case. You may have $15,000 authorized for equipment, but lo and behold, they went to auction and they bought it for $8,000.
Yeah, and that's okay, but you need to make sure and make that correction with SBA by sending in a loan authorization change request. Now, Bob, on your delegated lenders, POP and Express, you can make many of those changes, it's unilateral. Many of those changes are unilateral. But if you're doing a GP loan, it's going to have to be sent to Citrus Heights for approval.
And they'll approve 99% of these requests. Yeah,
Loan
100%.
authorization. When I was at the Little Rock Commercial Loan Servicing Center, Bob, uh, at that point, all loan authorization changes went there. They didn't have them separated based on whether the loan was dispersed or not. We would do on average 400 to 500 a month, and I'm sorry.
That's all. We lost you. We lost your punchline. How many?
Oh, I would say at least 99% of those got approved.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, do we have any questions? Are we clear? Hey, everyone, I hope you enjoyed week 1, and keep up the good work. And we'll talk to you. Oh, by the way, I'm going to play hooky next Friday. I'm going to the desert in my Jeep and drive around. So, Lance, I will turn it over to you and Joseph for week 2.
Well, I look forward to next week. Make sure and get your questions together if you have any, and hopefully this congestion from my flu will be gone next week.
Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the long weekend. Talk to you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.